half the population of Pakistan is women. But when you look at whether women are part of the labor force, there's very, very few of them. Here's a photograph of a household very similar to some of the households that we visited. It's representative of perhaps one of the largest marginalized groups in Pakistan today, which is the women. Not only are they looking after their families, but they're also trying to find ways of generating income. The main motivation for the project is how do you improve the living conditions for the kinds of women that, for example, are represented here in the photograph. What's important to understand is that the opportunities that are available to certain parts of society are not necessarily available to everybody. One of the things that we're interested in for Pakistan's context is that distance is a constraint for women. It's a constraint for women for accessing public services and investing in themselves and their families to improve their conditions. Their mobility is limited in many ways to the village that they're in, and sometimes their activity is limited to the households that they're in. And they can't travel very far to access whether it's education or health or vocational training services. The project is interested in looking at how do you reduce these constraints for women? How do you reduce the access barriers that are linked to distance for women in low-income communities in rural Punjab? The quantitative component has been about experimental interventions in order to generate rigorous evidence for policymakers. Researchers spent time in the communities talking to these women to find out what it is that they needed. They spent time talking with the communities to find out what they needed. And then the interventions were designed. We found that women's participation rates increase substantially if training centers are located close to where they are. Group transport that allows them to sort of access the training centers improves participation rates. And giving them stipends also. So simply creating centers either very close but not within the village boundary doesn't work as well as placing centers within villages. Some of the women who dropped out of the training, for example, one of the key reasons was that they weren't always able to find someone to go with them. They spoke about how it was very easy for them to go to their neighbor's house or their friend's house across the street, but that going to another village was a real problem for them and they needed to go with somebody. What we're finding is the women who participated in this training now feel a lot more confident. A lot of them spoke to us about how they didn't know how to use a measuring tape, that they would sew clothes sort of measuring with their thumbs and fingers to measure out the cloth. And having participated in the training, not only had they learned to recognize numbers on a measuring tape, but they were using it. They were much better at what they were doing. So there was this sense of confidence that we felt had come from these women having participated in these trainings, which was really quite awesome. One of the reasons the project is so important is because it's been, in a very real way, able to influence policy design. And the findings of the project that it actually improves women's participation by having the center located within the village has now been taken into account by the government department that's designing policies.